It's France's moment of truth. Polling stations opened across mainland France for a second round parliamentary vote that is expected to be won by far-right leader Marine Le Pen's national rally. Voting began at 8 a.m. local time, which will continue to 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. in major cities when voting estimates will be released. 501 out of 577 seats are up for grabs in the runoff. 289 will be needed for absolute majority. As voters take to the polling stations to cast their ballots, the stakes are high for the future of France's political landscape. While the anti-immigration Eurosceptic party may not win an outright majority, a hung parliament would leave a divided France in political limbo and weaken its international standing. More than 200 candidates have withdrawn their candidacies to block National Rally from coming to power. However, much uncertainty remains if voters will go along with these efforts to block Marine Le Pen's far-right party.
I saw the map of voting in France and it scared me a little bit because the majority are with the RN. So obviously I don't feel very well. I think there are many of us who have this feeling. Many of us who are afraid for France, for the future.
It is not an anti-Semitic party, far from it. On the contrary, there have been representatives of the Jewish community who asked that we vote for the National Rally, whereas 30 years ago, we would never have said that about the National Rally, which used to be called as the National Front. So while it was considered an anti-Semitic party, today I think that it is not an anti-Semitic party, it is not an Islamophobic party, despite what some may think. So I think, why not? It's a party that has never been in power. We still have hope.
Ahead of voting in the mainland France, voters in France's overseas territories and those living abroad cast their ballots. First French region to vote was Saint-Pierre and Miquelon, a small French archipelago off the coast of Canada. They were followed by residents of French Caribbean territories, including Guadeloupe, Martinique, as well as French Guyana in South America, and French citizens living in the United States. Polling stations in the Pacific territory of New Caledonia opened next. Opinion polls indicate far-right National Rally and its allies are expected to secure between 205 and 230 seats in the runoff vote. However, it will fall short of absolute majorities. New Popular Front is likely to win 145 to 175 seats, while Macron's centrist bloc will end up with 130 to 162 seats. If the vote is in line with the latest surveys, the election will deliver a hung parliament. Let's take a look at possible options if the outcome is hung parliament. The mainstream parties can pull together a coalition. Otherwise, they can opt for an ad hoc alliance to vote through individual pieces of legislation in the new parliament. It is possible that none of the three groups will be big enough to govern alone. In such a case, it can reach a coalition deal or provide assurance it can run a viable minority government. This will lead to France risking political paralysis. As a result, with little or no legislation adopted, a caretaker government will run the basic daily affairs. We're now being joined by our correspondent Himanshu Dikshit, who is reporting live from Paris. Himanshu, it's the big round 2 of the election season in France. What's the mood like on the ground? How are voters likely to vote? And can we expect a higher voter turnout today?
It's an extremely consequential day here in France. It will not be wrong to say that it's one of the most consequential days since the World War II in terms politically speaking. Because what we know is that the right-wing party led by Marine Le Pen is in the pole position. Remember, it is not just the political unrest, but it is social unrest that could happen if the right wing eventually does have an outright majority or they become the most popular party in France. There are around 30,000 police officers who have been centered around all of France, just 10,000 police officers just in Paris alone. So we can see how seriously it has been taken. And of course, by 8 o'clock today, we will get to know a good idea as to where Marine Le Pen party stands and where Macron stands.
Himanshu, the big question on everybody's mind is, can the Republican front stall far-right's Marine Le Pen?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The thing is that you see, when the first poll happened on the 30th, around 76 MPs were outright selected. The seats were selected, but now the left-wing coalition and the Emmanuel Macron centrist parties, what they have done is that the person who was in the third position have tried to get out of the race so that they can consolidate the vote and make sure that Le Pen's party does not come into the power. The polls right now are suggesting that she can win up to 190 to 250. So we will have to see if they can actually stop her from having an outright majority. What also is very important to say is that Marine Le Pen's tone has changed a little bit. Initially, she had said that if they do not win an outright majority, then Jordan Bardella, her protege, will not become the prime minister and they will not claim to form the government. But however, she did say yesterday that if they are close enough, they will try to form a government.
Right. And will France see a drastic change in policy under Jordan Bardella if the far right actually win the elections, especially with regards to France-Ukraine relations and climate change?
Steve, with relation to the Ukraine war, Marine Le Pen has a lot of connection with Russia. In fact, there was a Russian bank which sponsored her party not so long ago. However, as the time has changed, she has become closer to NATO, where the change would be that her party is completely pro-Israel and they do not want an independent state. That's where the policy difference will happen. However, it's more the internal politics that will also change. They are extremely anti-immigrant and Eurosceptic.
If we talk about voting patterns today, what will happen if no party gets an absolute majority? What's at stake?
It's an uncharted territory for France. We do not know. Generally, you have this something called cohabitation, where basically two parties, the president is of the other party and the forming government is of the other party. This last time this happened was under Jacques Chirac in 1997. However, this time there are three political parties. There is the extreme right, there is the left coalition, and there is the centrist of Macron. So we do not really know what will happen in that position because all three parties don't see eye to eye in terms of policies. And so if there are no allies formed, it will be a hung assembly. Remember, Olympics is just upon Paris. They will be taking place in this month, later this month, and we could end up Olympics without a prime minister in France.
Thank you, Himanshu, for joining us on the broadcast. Do continue tracking the latest on ground. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.